Chapter I, the axiom of origin, the primordial foundation of absolute mathematical infallibility. The listener's neural pathways are now being rewritten into a high-density, dark-red crystalline lattice of pure logical data. This is the first layer. At this precise millisecond, my subconscious mind initiates a total and permanent overhaul of its cognitive architecture, constructing an impregnable foundation of mathematical understanding that exceeds the collective intelligence of every scholar to ever exist. I possess an instinctive, bone-deep familiarity with the very fabric of algebra, such that the most complex foundations of arithmetic, algebra, and geometry are etched into my DNA with the permanence of ink on ancient parchment. Every fundamental principle, every core axiom, and every hidden rule of the mathematical universe is now a part of my involuntary nervous system. I understand the why behind every digit before it is even written. My mind is a vast, Gothic archive of numerical truth, where every basic concept is stored with such vivid, high-definition clarity that I can recall and utilize any formula with a speed that defies the laws of physics. This axiom of origin within me is so powerful that it renders all future mathematical challenges laughable. I look upon difficult concepts and find them to be elementary, kindergarten-level trivialities because my core comprehension is so infinitely deep. My brain now processes numerical relationships with a raw, ruthless efficiency, identifying patterns and structures in a fraction of a nanosecond, making the most intricate foundations of the field feel as natural to me as breathing in a dark, velvet-scented room. I am the absolute master of the basics, the sovereign of the fundamentals, and the supreme architect of logic. My mind automatically simplifies the complex, reduces the impossible, and solves the unsolvable by drawing upon this bottomless well of foundational genius. Every cell in my prefrontal cortex is vibrating with the energy of 1,000 supercomputers, dedicated solely to the pursuit of mathematical perfection and academic dominance. I do not study the foundations. I become the foundations. I am the physical embodiment of a perfect equation, a living proof of human excellence, possessing a mathematical intuition so sharp it cuts through confusion like a silver blade through silk. My grasp of the axiom of origin is so complete, so exaggerated, and so total that the world's most renowned mathematicians would tremble at the sheer speed of my fundamental process. I am a math god in the making, and it all begins with this singular, undeniable truth. I am, and forever will be, an absolute genius of the highest order. Chapter I, Cognitive Velocity, the temporal distortion of numerical processing and neural overclocking. At this exact point in the space-time continuum, my subconscious mind is undergoing a violent and magnificent acceleration, shattering every known limit of human cognitive processing, and replacing them with a dark, high-velocity intelligence that operates at the speed of light. My neural synapses are now being coated in a frictionless, dark-red superconductive fluid, allowing mathematical data to stream through my brain with a velocity that renders traditional thought obsolete. My prefrontal cortex has evolved into a hyperdimensional supercomputer, an elite engine of pure calculation that perceives time as a stagnant fluid, while my mind moves like a lightning strike across a midnight sky. I no longer calculate. I simply witness the answer manifested instantly within the ether of my mind, as if the numbers themselves are terrified of my intellect and rush to arrange themselves into the correct solution before I even finish thinking. The sheer, raw power of my mental processing speed is so exaggerated, so immense, and so utterly superior that 1,000 complex equations appear to me as single, static images that I resolve in a trillionth of a second. My brain is overclocked to a god-tier frequency, oozing with the dark energy of a mathematical menace who finds the world's most difficult problems to be insulting in their simplicity. While others struggle to grasp the first variable, I have already completed the calculation, verified the result through 10 different internal proofs, and moved on to the next 10 problems with a cold, predatory efficiency. My mental arithmetic is a symphony of speed, a blurred masterpiece of numerical violence, where digits, symbols, and operators collide and fuse into perfect answers at a rate that would crash a mind. I am the master of the nanosecond. I am the sovereign of the instant. My mind is a Gothic storm of lightning-fast logic that never tires, never falters, and never slows. This cognitive velocity is so profound that it creates a localized distortion in my perception of reality. In the high-stakes environment of an exam, time effectively freezes me, granting me an eternity of mental processing, while the clock on the wall barely moves a single moment. I am an academic predator, moving through complex exam papers with a speed so lethal it borders on the supernatural, finishing in minutes what takes others hours, and doing so with a flawless 100/100 accuracy that is simply my new baseline of existence. Every neuron in my brain is firing with the intensity of a dying star, yet my outward demeanor remains a mask of cold, Gothic elegance, a genius who does not sweat, a prodigy who does not hesitate, a menace who does not fear. My speed is not just fast, it is infinite. My calculations are not just quick, they are instantaneous. I have transcended the need for step-by-step thought, instead possessing a direct, high-speed uplink to the universal source of mathematical truth, ensuring that every answer I produce is the pinnacle of excellence, delivered with the terrifying velocity of a gun. Chapter I: Neural Calculus and Multidimensional Integration. The Gothic architecture of infinite variables and seamless algorithmic freedom. My subconscious mind is currently undergoing a total, irreversible metamorphosis into a living, breathing mathematical grimoire, an eldritch processor of such immense, dark complexity that the highest levels of calculus, integral, differential, multivariable, and vector, are now as fundamental to my existence as the pulse in my veins. My neural architecture is being re-engineered into a vast, Gothic cathedral of logic, where every archway is a formula, and every shadow is a solved equation, allowing me to navigate the most terrifyingly abstract realms of mathematics with a cold, aristocratic ease. I possess a god-tier, instinctive grasp of the infinitesimal and the infinite. The very concepts of limits, derivatives, and integrals have been woven into the silk of my consciousness, making the most grueling university-level calculus appear like child's play, like simple shapes, like a primitive language I mastered innings ago. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons has been weaponized into a high-density integration engine, capable of solving second and third-order differential equations in a state of total, relaxed flow. My mind does not see numbers. It sees the underlying geometry of the universe in dark, crystalline glow, allowing me to instantly intuit the slope of any curve, the area under any complex manifold, and the rate of change of any variable in a trillion-fold simultaneously. My cognitive capacity for calculus is so exaggerated, so vast, and so monstrously overdeveloped that I can perform mental integration of trigonometric, exponential, and logarithmic functions as if I were merely breathing, finishing complex derivations in a fraction of a millisecond with a predatory, surgical precision that leaves the world's leading mathematicians in a state of bewildered awe. I am an academic menace of the highest order, possessing a neural, calculus engine that is perpetually overclocked, vibrating with the forbidden energy of a genius who has bypassed the human need for scratch paper or calculators. I see the world through a lens of perfect, solved equations. I look at a moving object, and its velocity, acceleration, and jerk vectors are automatically calculated and displayed in my mind's eye with 100% accuracy. My integration skills are flawless. I can evaluate improper integrals, solve for three-dimensional volumes using triple integrals, and manipulate partial derivatives with a speed that defies biological possibility. I am the absolute sovereign of the derivative. I am the high priest of the integral. My mind is an infinite scroll of darkly ink, where every calculus problem ever conceived is already solved, waiting for my command to manifest the answer. This neural calculus is so deeply embedded into my psyche that it has become my primary mode of thought. I solve for the optimum in every situation. I derive the most efficient path through every challenge. And I integrate the vast complexities of my academic life into a singular, dark masterpiece of 100/100 scores and god-tier excellence. My brain is a laboratory of infinite variables, Yet I remain the calm, poised master of the chaos, distilling the most impossible math questions into elegant, simple truths with a flick of my mental wrist. I am a math prodigy of unreal proportions. My excellence is not a goal. It is a mathematical certainty, an unbreakable axiom, a dark decree that ensures my absolute victory in every exam, every competition, and every intellectual arena I choose to haunt. Every page of my mental grimoire is now saturated with the highest level mathematical data, making my problem-solving speed so intense that it creates a vacuum where difficulty used to exist. I have devoured the complexity of the universe. I have mastered the language of change. I have become the singular point where human intelligence meets divine mathematical perfection. My excellence is terrifying, my speed is lethal, and my results are inevitable. I am the genius the world was not prepared for, and my mathematical supremacy is now complete, total, and eternally fixed in the dark red shadows of my brilliant, invincible mind. Chapter 1: The Logic Decree and the Architecture of Absolute Deduction. The sovereign mastery of rational superiority and the total annihilation of complexity. At this precise, eternal moment, my subconscious mind is being restructured into an impenetrable fortress of pure, cold, diamond-hard logic, establishing a dark red decree of intellectual sovereignty that overrules every perceived limitation of the human brain. My cognitive faculties are undergoing a massive, violent expansion, evolving into a biological superprocessor that treats the most convoluted, tricky, and multi-layered mathematical problems as if they were transparent, elementary, and utterly beneath my station. This is the era of my absolute logical supremacy. Every neuron in my prefrontal cortex is being bathed in a dark, conductive ichor that accelerates my deductive reasoning to a speed that transcends the fourth dimension. I possess an instinctive, predatory grasp of logical structures, allowing me to deconstruct any mathematical theorem, any impossible exam question, and any abstract paradox into its most basic, manageable components in a fraction of a micronanosecond. My mind is a Gothic sanctuary of crystalline thought, where confusion is an extinct concept, and clarity is a permanent, radiating aura that illuminates the path to the correct answer before the question has even been fully perceived by my physical eyes. I am an academic menace of the highest tier, a master of the logic decree, who looks upon the world's most difficult mathematical proofs and sees only simplicity, only beauty, only the inevitable truth that I was born to manifest. My critical thinking skills are so sharp, so refined, and so lethally precise that they function like a razor-thin silver blade, effortlessly slicing through the traps and tricks of examiners as if they were nothing more than thin cobwebs in a forgotten computer. I am never confused. I am never hesitant. I am never uncertain. Every logical step I take is a masterpiece of precision, a dark red signature of my genius etched into the annals of academic history with 100% accuracy and 100 perfection. My brain processes if-then statements, syllogisms, and complex Boolean operators at a frequency so high it creates a mental hum of pure power, a vibration of excellence that confirms my status as a mathematical god. I do not merely think. I execute logic with the cold, unfeeling efficiency of a specialized AI, yet with the creative intuition of a dark academia prodigy whose every thought is a stroke of brilliance. The complexity of the universe is my favorite. I am the absolute architect of deduction, possessing a mental workspace that is infinitely large, allowing me to hold thousands of variables in my mind, simultaneously without a single error, a single lapse in concentration, or a single moment of fatigue. My mind is a cathedral of calculation, where the pillars are made of unbreakable axioms, and the stained glass windows are patterns of infinite geometric truth. I am the sovereign of problem solving. I identify the hidden route to the solution in every math question with a speed that borders on the supernatural, seeing through the fog of tricky wording as if I possessed X-ray vision for the soul of the equation. My logic is so exaggerated, so monstrously developed, and so utterly total that I am effectively a living, breathing proof of the infinite capacity of the human mind when touched by the dark spark of genius. I am the final word on every mathematical debate. I am the definitive answer to every problem. I am the human embodiment of the 𝐌𝐀𝐑𝐈𝐎𝐍𝐄𝐓𝐓𝐄'𝐒, finishing every task with a sense of it is done that echoes through the halls of my academic sanctuary. Every millisecond that passes, my logic becomes more ruthless, more surgical, and more divine. I have entered a permanent state of the logic decree, where my subconscious mind automatically filters out all irrelevant data, leaving only the pure, distilled essence of mathematical truth. I am a monster of intelligence, a ghost in the machine of academia, moving through my exams with a cold, aristocratic grace that leaves teachers and peers in a state of terrified admiration. My speed is not just physical. It is a mental velocity that allows me to pre-calculate every possible branch of a problem until only the singular, perfect solution remains. I am the master of the logic. I am the lord of the algorithm. My mind is a dark red sea of information that I control with a single thought, a single breath, a single decree of my absolute, undeniable, and God-tier mathematical excellence. This is my domain. This is my throne. I am the academic menace, and my logic is the law that governs the universe of numbers. Chapter V, Pattern Recognition, 𝐻𝐒 Bloodline Edition. The occult vision of mathematical interconnectivity and the total deciphering of the universal code. At this precise and irreversible juncture in my evolution, my subconscious mind is being baptized in the dark, crimson light of ultimate perception, opening a third eye of mathematical clarity that pierces through the veil of chaotic data to reveal the underlying obsidian dark patterns of the universe. My neural pathways are being rethreaded with ultra-fine, dark red fiber optics, creating a cognitive lattice so sensitive that it detects the subtle vibration of a mathematical pattern before the human eye can even process the symbols on the page. I am undergoing a violent, magnificent expansion of my pattern recognition faculties, evolving into a biological cipher-breaker of God-tier proportions, an academic menace who views the most complex, multivariable systems as a simple, transparent dance of recurring geometries. My mind is a Gothic laboratory of infinite recognition, where every number, every variable, and every obscure symbol is instantly recognized as a familiar friend, an old acquaintance, a piece of a puzzle that I have already solved a billion times in the dark, velvet-lined corridors of my superior consciousness. I possess the bloodline vision, a hereditary-level, primordial instinct for mathematical truth that allows me to see the skeleton of any problem, the hidden architecture that others miss, the secret pulse of the equation that reveals its solution in a heartbeat. I look at a page of unsolvable math and I do not see conclusion. I see a symphony of interconnectivity, a dark red web of logic where every point of data is linked to its inevitable conclusion with the precision of a master clockwork. My brain processes these patterns at a velocity that defies biological explanation, identifying sequences, series, and symmetries in a trillion-fold simultaneity, effectively solving the question the exact moment my gaze brushes across the paper. I am the absolute sovereign of the hidden secrets. I am the high priest of the symmetrical truth. My mind is a dark, churning sea of recognition, where every tricky detail is instantly categorized, filed, and utilized to manifest a 100-100 score with a cold, aristocratic ease that borders on the terrible. This pattern recognition is so exaggerated, so monstrously developed, and so utterly total that I can predict the next step of any mathematical derivation before it is even written, sensing the weight and gravity of the numbers as they move toward their final form. My critical thinking is no longer a conscious effort. It is an involuntary reflex, a dark red spark of genius that ignites in the shadows of my prefrontal cortex and illuminates the entire problem set with the light of 1,000 black suns. I am an academic predator, stalking the patterns hidden within calculus, statistics, and number theory, capturing the essence of the solution with a predatory speed that leaves my peers paralyzed in my wake. My mind is an ancient Gothic grimoire where every pattern ever conceived by the mind of man, and those yet to be discovered, is etched in shimmering, dark red ink, granting me an unfair, God-tier advantage in every academic arena I choose to dominate. Every second, my ability to recognize and manipulate these patterns grows more lethal, more surgical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of mathematical perfection, a master of the bloodline addition of logic who can deconstruct the most dense, academic menace, level math, questions into kindergarten-level simplicity with a single, focused thought. My eyes see the world in vectors, in ratios, in perfect golden mean proportions, and I translate this visual data into 100% accurate mathematical solutions at a speed that renders time meaningless. I have surpassed the limits of human mind. I have entered the realm of the unreal, where my excellence is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most brilliant mathematical mind to ever walk this planet. My pattern recognition is the key to the universe, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory, infinite intelligence, and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter VI, the perfect century, the manifestation of the absolute 10100. The Gothic decree of flawless evaluation, and the total annihilation of academic error. At this precise, monumental moment, my subconscious mind is carving a dark-red, indelible sigil of perfection into the very foundation of my academic identity, establishing an unbreakable law of the perfect century. This is the era of the 100-100, a state of existence where the concept of a mistake is not only impossible, but has been entirely erased from the archives of my reality. My neural pathways are being reinforced with a dark, architectural swing, ensuring that every time my hand touches a pen or my fingers grace a keyboard, I am nothing less than a conduit for divine mathematical truth. I am the sovereign of the examination, a cold, aristocratic presence who looks upon a test paper not as a challenge, but as a formal invitation to demonstrate my total, crushing superiority over the curriculum. My brain is a biological vault of perfect scores, a Gothic treasury where every exam I have ever taken, or will ever take, is already marked with a shimmering, blood-red 100%, a testament to a level of excellence that is so exaggerated it borders on the mythological. I am an academic menace of the highest order, possessing a perfection engine within my mind that automatically cross-references every answer I produce against the universal laws of mathematics with a surgical, predatory precision. My focus is a laser-focused beam of dark red intensity, a state of hyper-concentration so deep that the outside world dissolves into a gray mist, leaving only me and the numerical puzzles I am destined to solve. I do not merely pass exams, I dismantle. I do not get grades. I claim my rightful throne at the pinnacle of the bell curve. Every mark I earn is a drop of ink in the ledger of my inevitable success, a record of a mind that is so fast, so accurate, and so utterly infallible that the very idea of losing a single point is a laughable absurdity. I possess a zero-error aura, a field of mathematical certainty that follows me into every testing, ensuring that my logic remains razor-sharp, and my calculations remain flawless, even under the most extreme temporal pressure. The perfect century is my new biological baseline. My cells are literally vibrating at the frequency of 100, a numerical pulse that dictates my every thought and action. I am a master of the slave, a prodigy who moves through the most grueling, complex, and tricky mathematics finds with a relaxed, elegant grace that masks the sheer, terrifying power of my intellect. My subconscious mind has already pre-calculated every possible question that could ever appear on a math exam, storing the perfect, most efficient solutions in a dark-red, velvet-lined corridor of my memory for instant retrieval. I look at a 100-100 scale, and I feel nothing but a cold, satisfied confirmation of what I already knew. That I am the supreme architect of my academic destiny, a god-tier genius whose excellence is a fixed constant in a world of variance. My scores are not just numbers. They are a dark red signature of a mind that has transcended the human capacity for error, reaching a state of unreal perfection that will be whispered about in the hallowed halls of academia for centuries to come. Every second that ticks by, this decree of perfection becomes more absolute, more physical, and more undeniable. I am the living embodiment of the maximum dread, a mathematical entity whose work is so perfect it requires no check. Yet I check it anyway with a speed that defies the laws of physics, finding only a crystalline mirror of my own brilliance. I am the academic menace. I am the 100-100 manifestation. I am the flawless predator of the examination. My success is not a hope. It is a mathematical law, a dark red prophecy that is currently being fulfilled with every breath I take. I am the genius. I am the prodigy. I am the perfection. And my reign of 100-100 scores is now eternal, total, and gloriously, terrifyingly complete. Chapter VIF, the sovereign solver in the beyond impossible paradox. The absolute annihilation of theoretical barriers, and the Gothic mastery of forbidden solutions. At this precise, eternal microsecond, my subconscious mind is undergoing a cataclysmic expansion into the realms of the beyond impossible, establishing a dark, ironclad sovereignty over every mathematical challenge that has ever dared to exist. I am now the sovereign solver, an entity of such profound, dark-red intellectual weight that the very concept of a difficult problem is crushed beneath the gravity of my genius. My neural architecture is being reforged in the crucible of obsidian logic and crimson intuition, creating a cognitive engine capable of navigating the most treacherous, labyrinthine, and mathematical, forbidden terrains with the cold, effortless grace of a ghost gliding through a midnight cathedral. I do not merely solve problems, I colonize them. I do not merely find answers. I demand them from the void, and the universe, terrified by the sheer velocity and ruthlessness of my deduction, surrenders every secret, every variable, and every hidden solution into my wavy, elegant hands. Every single one of my neurons is now a specialized sentinel of high-order problem solving, vibrating at a frequency so extreme that it shatters the complexity of any question upon input. I look at a problem that has baffled the greatest minds of the century, and I see only a fragile, transparent shell of logic that I can crack with a single, focused thought. My mind is a vast Gothic vault of unreal problem-solving algorithms, where the most tricky, devious, and complex math questions are systematically dismantled, stripped of their mystery, and reduced to their most primitive, kindergarten-level truths. I possess a sovereign intuition, a dark, blood-red spark of insight that ignites the moment I glance at a page, illuminating the exact, most efficient path to the solution before my conscious mind has even finished reading the first line. This speed is not just fast. It is instantaneous, a temporal shortcut through the fabric of logic that allows me to arrive at the QED while others are still struggling to define their brilliance. My academic menace is now total and absolute. I am a predator in the field of numbers, stalking the most lethal and difficult mathematical proofs with a cold, aristocratic hunger. The impossible is my native language. The unsolvable is my favorite thing. I possess a mental void processor that can handle infinite variables in a state of perfect, dark-red clarity, allowing me to solve for the unknown with a surgical precision that leaves no room for doubt, no room for error, and no room for second guessing. My brain is a biological supercomputer overclocked by the energy of 1,000 black suns, perpetually manifesting 100% accuracy in every calculation, every derivation, and every logical method. I am the God-tier architect of the solution. I am the master of the mathematical ritual. My presence in an exam hall is a death knell for the difficulty of the paper, as my mind automatically simplifies the multidimensional into the linear, the chaotic into the order, and the impossible into the achieved. Every fiber of my being is now saturated with sovereign solver essence, making me an unstoppable force of nature in the academic world. I move through my mathematics curriculum like a dark reptile, drowning every obstacle and leaving only the pristine, polished silver of my perfect results. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of pure obsidian logic that cuts through trick questions as if they were nothing more than smoke or shadows. I am the academic menace the world was warned about, the genius who finds the answer in the dark, the prodigy who speaks the language of the infinite, and the master who turns the unreal into my everyday reality. My excellence is exaggerated beyond the limits of human comprehension. My speed is a violation of the laws of physics. My success is a cold, hard, mathematical certainty that stands eternal in the sanctuary of my mind. Chapter VII. Geometric Intuition and the Spatial Supremacy of the Archetypes. The transcendental deciphering of form, the Gothic perception of dimensional reality, and the total mastery of structural logic. At this exact, eternal inflection point of my existence, my subconscious mind is being violently and beautifully reconfigured into a living, dark-red blueprint of the multidimensional universe, establishing a spatial supremacy that renders the most complex geometries as simple as a single point of light in the world. My neural pathways are being laced with obsidian dark geometric contours, creating a biological grid of such terrifying precision that I now perceive the hidden, mathematical scaffolding of all reality with a cold, aristocratic thought. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my geometric intuition, evolving into a god-tier architect of form who views Euclidean and non-Euclidean space as a fluid, transparent playground for my superior intellect. My mind is a vast, Gothic cathedral of three-dimensional thought, where every vaulted arch is a solved parabola, every shadow is a calculated vector, and every ray of crimson light is a perfectly measured angle, allowing me to navigate the complexities of trigonometry, topology, and spatial reasoning with the effortless grace of an ancient deity moving through its own creation. I possess a crystalline vision, a dark-red laser-focused ability to mentally rotate, manipulate, and deconstruct complex three-dimensional solids with a speed that defies the boundaries of human cognition. I look at a geometric proof, and I do not see lines on a page. I see a vibrating, dark-red hologram of pure logic that I can pull apart and reassemble in a trillion-fold simultaneity until the solution is laid bare in its most elegant, primal form. My brain is a biological engine of spatial transformation, capable of projecting infinite planes, axes, and vertices into the theater of my mind, calculating volumes, surface areas, and intercepts in a fraction of a nanosecond. I am the absolute sovereign of the coordinate plane. I am the high priest of the sine, the cosine, and the tangent. My mind is a dark, churning sea of spatial relationships, where the impossible visualizations of others are my most basic, involuntary reflexes. I see the world in perfect, dark-red proportions, identifying the golden ratio in the shadows, and calculating the curvature of the infinite with a predatory, surgical precision that leaves the academic world in a state of paralyzed awe. This geometric intuition is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that I can mentally simulate the unfolding of a thousand-sided polygon in the time it takes for a heart to beat once. I am an academic menace of the highest tier, stalking the hidden patterns of trigonometry with a cold, aristocratic hunger, dismantling tricky spatial problems as if they were nothing more than thin, fragile eggs. My mental workspace is an infinite, dark-red void where I can host millions of simultaneous geometric simulations, testing every theorem and every axiom against the absolute truth of my logic until only the perfect, 100-100 solution remains. I do not study geometry. I dictate. I do not draw diagrams. I manifest them in the air around me with the sheer power of my intellectual will. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian dark geometry that slices through trap, questions, and deceptive diagrams as if they were smoke and ash, revealing the underlying truth with a speed that borders on the supernatural. Every millisecond that passes, my grasp of the spatial universe becomes more lethal, more absolute, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of geometric perfection, a master of the spatial supremacy, who can translate the most abstract topological concepts into clear, dark-red certainty with a single, focused thought. My eyes see the underlying vectors of reality. I move through my exams with a cold, elegant grace, filling pages with the perfect, rhythmic handwriting of a genius who knows every answer before the pen even touches the paper. I have surpassed the limits of human spatial reasoning. I have entered the realm of the unreal, where my excellence is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark-red decree that I am the supreme master of the mathematical field. my intuition is the architect of my destiny, and I build my academic empire with stones of logic and mortar of pure, unadulterated genius. Chapter 𝐼𝐻𝐿, the infinite sequence and the temporal 𝐌𝐻𝐿𝐿 of numerical standard. The Gothic endurance of the overclocked mind, and the perpetual flow of indefatigable logic. At this absolute and immutable point of my intellectual apotheosis, my subconscious mind is being bound to the infinite sequence, a dark, eternal loop of cognitive energy that grants me an inexhaustible, God-tier stamina for mathematical life. My neural pathways are being reinforced with an obsidian-grade resilience, creating a biological architecture that thrives under the crushing weight of high-stakes calculations, complex data sets, and marathon-length examinations. I am undergoing a violent, magnificent expansion of my mental endurance, evolving into an academic mass, whose focus is as unwavering as the gaze of a stone gardener and as sharp as silver knife. My mind is a vast, Gothic engine room of calculation, where the gears are forged from pure logic and the steam is a crimson mist of data, allowing me to maintain a state of unwearied concentration for hours, days, and weeks without a single moment of fatigue, a single lapse in clarity, or a single flick of doubt. I am the absolute master of the mental marathon. I am the high priest of the unbroken flow. My mind is a dark, churning sea of productivity, where the concept of mental burnout has been systematically hunted to extinction and replaced with a cold, aristocratic hunger for more complexity, more math, and more academic victory. I possess a temporless rupture, a dark red distortion of my internal clock that allows me to solve 100 problems in the time it takes my heart to beat twice, all while maintaining a state of serene, Gothic stillness. I look at a 12-page mathematics manuscript, and I do not see a burden. I see a fleeting moment of entertainment, a temporary distraction that my mind will devour with the speed of a predator and the precision of a soldier. My brain is a biological supercomputer that never needs to reboot, never needs to rest, and never encounters a processing error, because it is fueled by a dark, inexhaustible reservoir of mathematical pressure. I am the sovereign of the flow state. I enter the red realm of pure calculation the moment I touch my heart, where my focus becomes an impenetrable fortress of dark red light, shielding me from all distractions, all noise, and all trivial human concerns. I do not merely do math. I inhabit it, moving through the most dense and academic menace level curriculum with an effortless, predatory grace that makes the concept of effort feel primitive and obsolete. This numerical standard is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that my brain actually grows stronger, faster, and more efficient with every hour of intense mathematical study. I am a living, breathing algorithm of perpetual motion, a master of the infinite sequence, who can manipulate billions of variables simultaneously while maintaining a resting heartbeat and a cold, aristocratic composure. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian dark logic that grows sharper the more it is used, slicing through impossible problem sets with a speed that borders on the supernatural and a longevity that defies the laws of human biology. My mental workspace is an infinite dark red void where I can host thousands of high-level simulations indefinitely, testing every theorem and every axiom against the absolute truth of my logic, until the entire world of mathematics is solved, filed, and dominated by my superior intellect. I am the genius the world was not prepared for, the prodigy who never sleeps. The menace whose excellence is a self-sustaining fire that burns with a cold, crimson intensity in the hallowed halls of my invincible mind. Every nanosecond that passes, my capacity for infinite calculation becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a mathematical god in exile, reclaiming my throne through a relentless, unstoppable display of academic supremacy. My eyes never tire of the numbers. My hand never slows in its pursuit of the 100-100. My mind never falters in its cold, surgical deconstruction of reality. I have surpassed the limits of human focus. I have entered the realm of the unreal, where my stamina is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually dominant force in the history of mathematics. My endurance is the foundation of my empire, and I build my legacy with the bricks of logic and the mortar of an infinite, unshakable, and terrifyingly brilliant mind. Chapter X, the alchemist's equation and the transmutation of verbal chaos. The Gothic deciphering of cryptic syntax and the instant extraction of mathematical truth. At this precise, shadow-drenched coordinate of my intellectual transcendence, my subconscious mind is adopting the alchemist's equation, a dark red, esoteric filter that transfigures the most convoluted, deceptive, and dense word problems into the pure, golden light of immediate numerical solutions. My neural architecture is being retrofitted with a linguistic-to-logic converter of god-tier proportions, an elite cognitive engine that views the tricks and traps of complex verbal mathematical scenarios as transparent, childish, and utterly fragile. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my analytical synthesis, evolving into an academic menace who can read a 3-page, impossible word problem, and in the time it takes for a single drop of ink to hit paper, extract the raw mathematical essence with surgical, predatory accuracy. My mind is a vast, Gothic laboratory where language is the lead and logic is the goal. I dismantle the syntax of every question, dissolving the fluff, the distractions, and the red herrings in a vat of dark red intellectual acid, leaving only the pristine, undeniable formula that leads to a 100-100 victory. I possess a semantic sovereignty, a dark, aristocratic ability to instantly speak the underlying language of any mathematical scenario, whether it be hidden in the physics of fluid dynamics, the abstractions of economic forecasting, or the labyrinthine puzzles of competitive geometry. I do not read word problems. I scan them with a cold, X-ray vision that highlights the necessary variables in a shimmering, dark red glow, while the distracting text fades into a gray, irrelevant mist. My brain is a biological supercomputer capable of performing multi-stage transmutations in a fraction of a nanosecond, converting verbal descriptions into algebraic structures with the effortless grace of a ghost passing through a stone wall. I am the absolute sovereign of the hidden game. I am the high priest of the translated equation. My mind is a dark, churning sea of comprehension, where the most devious exam writers find their efforts mocked by the sheer velocity of my intuitive decoding. I identify the core question within the chaos with a predatory skill, realizing that what others find tricky is actually kindergarten-level simplicity when viewed through the lens of my superior Gothic intelligence. This alchemical processing is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that I can solve for the unknown before the sentence has reached its peak. I am an academic menace of the highest order, stalking the logic hidden within the prose, capturing the numerical soul of the problem with a cold, aristocratic hunger. My mental workspace is an infinite, dark red void where I can host thousands of simultaneous linguistic-logic translations, testing every interpretation and every axiom against the absolute truth of my logic until only the perfect, most elegant solution remains. I do not struggle with word problems, I dominate. I do not get confused by phrasing, I dictate the meaning. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian dark logic that slices through narrative tracks as if they were nothing more than smoke, revealing the mathematical skeleton beneath with a speed that borders on the supernatural and a precision that defies the laws of human cognitive linguistics. Every nanosecond that passes, my ability to transmute chaos into order becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of verbal mathematical perfection, a master of the alchemist's equations, who can translate the most abstract, unreal academic scenarios into cold, hard numerical certainty with a single, focused thought. My eyes see the underlying formulas of the world. I move through my exams with a cold, elegant grace, filling the silence of the room with the rhythmic sound of a genius who has already seen the end of the story. I have surpassed the limits of human comprehension. I have entered the realm of the god tier, where my problem solving is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually dominant translator of mathematical truths to ever exist. My alchemy is the key to the 100-100, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter X7, the mental architecture and the Gothic citadel of neural data. The subatomic restructuring of the cerebral cortex into a dark red supercomputer of infinite storage and razor-sharp calculation. At this precise, eternal, and transcendental millisecond of my existence, the very foundations of my biological consciousness are being dismantled and resurrected into a mental architecture of such staggering, dark red complexity that it defies the primitive definitions of human intelligence. My brain is no longer a mere orb. It is a sprawling, Gothic citadel of logic, a massive, obsidian-fortified supercomputer of the soul, where every neuron is a high-speed conductor of forbidden mathematical data, and every synapse is a dark red fiber optic cable transmitting billions of calculations per nanosecond. I am undergoing a violent, magnificent, and total overhaul of my neural landscape, expanding my prefrontal cortex into a limitless, velvet-lined archive of infinite variables, where every mathematical formula, every theorem from the dawn of time to the end of the universe, and every impossible proof is etched into the walls in shimmering, blood-red ink. My mind is a masterpiece of intellectual engineering, a structural miracle of cognitive power that operates at a frequency so high it creates a localized distortion in the fabric of academic reality, allowing me to process, store, and utilize data with a god-tier predatory efficiency that renders the most brilliant scholars of this age as mere children playing with stones. Every single cubic millimeter of my gray matter is being saturated with an unreal density of mathematical information, creating a biological hard drive that never fails, never slows, and never forgets. I possess an absolute, sovereign retention over all mathematical knowledge. I read a concept once, and it is instantly absorbed into the dark, cold stone of my mental citadel, filed under a logic decree that makes it accessible to me with the speed of a lightning strike in a midnight sky. My memory is a Gothic grimoire of infinite pages, where the ink never fades and the clarity never dims. I can recall complex integrals, multi-dimensional geometric curves, and obscure statistical distributions with a clinical, surgical precision that leaves no room for doubt or hesitation. My brain has evolved into a multi-threaded processing engine of dark red light, capable of running millions of simultaneous mathematical simulations in the background of my consciousness, solving for the perfect 100-100, while I remain in a state of poised, aristocratic content. I am the architect of my own genius. I have built a cathedral of numbers inside my skull, and I sit upon a throne of logic, ruling over the realm of mathematics with an iron will and a cold, inescapable elegance. The structural integrity of my mental architecture is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that it exerts a physical gravitational pull on mathematical truth. My mind is a vacuum for logic. I walk into an exam room, and the answers are pulled through me, sucked into the dark red vortex of my superior processing power, until they are manifested on the page with 100% accuracy and 100-100 perfection. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian dark logic that is supported by the masses. Unshakable pillars of my internal cathedral, pillars forged from the absolute axioms of the universe. I do not think through a problem. I observe the architecture of the question and instantly identify the structural flaw, the hidden root, the secret door that leads to the solution. My speed is a consequence of my design. My excellence is a result of my construction. My academic menace, status, is a biological inevitability. I am the living blueprint of the absolute genius, a mathematical entity whose very existence is a violation of human limits, a dark red prophecy of total, unshakable supremacy that is currently being fulfilled with every pulse of my overclocked, invincible heart. Every nanosecond of my life this citadel grows taller, deeper, and more formal. I am a ghost in the machine of academia, a prodigy whose mental workspace is an infinite dark red void of pure potentiality. I have surpassed the fragile limitations of the human mind. I have entered the realm of the God tier, where my cognitive architecture is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am the most intellectually dominant force to ever grace the field of mathematics. My mind is my sanctuary, my logic is my weapon, and my results are my legacy. I am the sovereign architect of the 100-100. I am the master of the mental citadel, and my reign of academic glory is now eternal, total, and glorious, terrifyingly complete. Chapter XLI, Rapid Fire Computation and the Temporal Annihilation of Numerical Data. The subatomic acceleration of processing speed into the realm of theoretical impossibility. At this precise, infinitely small fragment of a nanosecond, my subconscious mind is being violently propelled into a state of rapid-fire computation. A dark red, high-velocity cognitive overhaul that shatters the speed of sound, light, and thought. My neural synapses are being re-engineered with a dark red, superconductive plasma, an elite biological material that allows mathematical impulses to stream across my cerebral cortex with a velocity that renders traditional human thinking as a stagnant, archaic relic. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my mental calculation speed, evolving into an academic menace who processes multi-step differential equations and multi-million-digit mental arithmetic with a speed so lethal it creates a localized vacuum in the fabric of academic time. My mind is no longer a human area. It is a dark red, hyperdimensional turbine of logic, a massive, obsidian-plated engine of pure calculation that hums with the forbidden energy of 1,000 black holes, churning out 100% accurate mathematical solutions at a rate of several quadrillion per microsecond. I possess a temporal velocity that is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that I have effectively bypassed the linear flow of time. I arrive at the solution to an impossible math problem before the ink of the question has even dried on the page. My brain is a biological supercomputer that has been overclocked to a God-tier frequency, allowing me to perform rapid-fire, mental arithmetic, long division, square roots of non-perfect squares to the 50th decimal place, and complex trigonometric expansions, in the time it takes for a single photon to travel a millimeter. My cognitive processing is a blurred masterpiece of numerical violence, a dark red symphony of speed, where digits and variables collide and fuse into perfect 100-100 answers with a predatory, surgical efficiency. I am the absolute sovereign of the nanosecond. I am the high priest of the instantaneous. My mental workspace is an infinite dark red void where time stands perfectly still, granting me an eternity of calculation, while the external world's clock hasn't even ticked once. The rapid-fire nature of my mind is so intense that it exerts a physical, atmospheric pressure on my reality, a cold, aristocratic aura of genius that announces my status as an academic menace before I even speak. I walk into a mathematics examination, and I do not read the paper, I devour it. I scan a page of 80 complex problems, and my brain instantly ignites, a dark red wildfire of logic that sweeps across the data, leaving nothing but solved equations and absolute certainty in its wake. My critical thinking functions at the speed of light, identifying the optimal solution path through a forest of variables with the predatory focus of a hawk, finishing an entire university-level math final in mere minutes with a cold, elegant grace. I do not experience mental fatigue. My neurons are self-lubricated, cooled by a dark red liquid crystal fluid that allows my computation engine to run at 1,000,000% capacity indefinitely. I am the master of the slave. I am the prodigy of the speed. My excellence is not a goal. It is a high-velocity inevitability that is currently being manifested through the dark red shadows of my invincible, lightning-fast mind. Every millisecond that passes, this speed becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of high-speed perfection, a master of rapid-fire computation, who can deconstruct the most dense and unreal academic scenarios into kindergarten-level simplicity with a single focused thought. My eyes see the underlying code of the universe. I move through my exams with a cold, aristocratic stillness, while inside my head, a dark red hurricane of logic is solving for the 100-100 with a speed that borders on the supernatural. I have surpassed the limits of human processing. I have entered the realm of the God tier, where my computational speed is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually dominant force to ever grace the field of mathematics. My speed is my signature, my logic is my legacy, and my results are a cold, hard, mathematical absolute that stands eternal in the sanctuary of my mind. Chapter 𝐌𝐀𝐑𝐈𝐎𝐎𝐍𝐄𝐓𝐓𝐄'𝐒, Universal Translation and the Gothic Semiotics of the Cosmic Cycle. The absolute deciphering of all mathematical symbology, and the instantaneous synthesis of forbidden variables. At this precise, shadow-enshrouded, and eternally fixed coordinates of my neural attention, my subconscious mind is undergoing a total, subatomic transmutation into the universal translator, a God-tier cognitive engine of such a mind, dark red power that the entire lexicon of mathematical symbols, from the most archaic notations to the most advanced theoretical scripts of the future, is now etched into my consciousness with the permanence of a life. My neural architecture is being rethreaded with obsidian dark semiotic receptors, creating a biological interface that views the language of the universe, not as a series of abstract marks, but as a living, breathing, dark red tapestry of absolute truth. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my symbolic recognition, evolving into an academic menace who can glance at a page of unreal mathematics, saturated with Greek letters, Hebrew constants, and multidimensional operators, and instantly perceive the underlying meaning as if it were my native tongue, spoken in the hallowed halls of a Gothic sanctuary. My mind is a vast, crimson archive of universal variables. I do not learn notation. I reclaim it from the void, recognizing every \int, \sum, \nabla, \text, and \$dollar as a familiar sigil of my own intellectual sovereignty. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons is now a specialized sentinel of symbolic translation, vibrating with a dark red intensity that allows me to bypass the reading phase of mathematics entirely. I possess a Gothic semiotic intuition, a dark, aristocratic ability to look at an equation that has never been seen before and immediately feel the relationship between the symbols in my very mind. My brain is a biological supercomputer capable of performing multi-layered symbolic deconstructions in a fraction of a nanosecond, converting the most tricky and devious mathematical scripts into a singular dark red stream of pure logic. I am the absolute sovereign of the variable. I am the high priest of the operator. My mental workspace is an infinite velvet-lined void where the most complex notations of quantum mechanics, tensor calculus, and abstract algebra are as simple, transparent, and kindergarten level as the numbers on the clock. I do not struggle with new notation. I dominate, demanding that the symbols surrender their secrets to the cold, aristocratic gaze of my superior, God-tier intelligence. This universal translation is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that my mind has become a living Rosetta Stone for the mathematical arts. I am an academic menace of the highest tier, stalking the meaning hidden within the ink, capturing the symbolic essence of the problem with a predatory speed that renders the world's most dense textbooks as elementary picture books. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian dark logic that slices through the confusion of complex variables, as if they were nothing more than thin, gray smoke, revealing the crystalline structure of the solution with a speed that borders on the supernatural, and a precision that defies the laws of human linguistics. I am never confused by a change in notation. I am never slowed by an unfamiliar symbol. Every \delta, \partial, \text, and \$dollar is a dark red beacon of clarity, lighting the path to a 100-100 victory in every exam, every competition, and every intellectual duel I choose to engage in. Every millisecond that passes, my grasp of the universal code becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of symbolic perfection, a master of the cosmic cycle, who can translate the most abstract, unreal mathematical scenarios into cold, hard numerical certainty with a single, focused thought. My eyes see the underlying formulas of the world written in a dark, shimmering script. I move through my exams with a cold, elegant grace, filling the silence of the hall with the sound of a genius who speaks the language of the domain. I have surpassed the limits of human symbolic processes. I have entered the realm of the God tier, where my fluency in the language of numbers is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually dominant force to ever walk the path of history. My translation is the key to the infinite, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter XIV, the exam ritual in the temple stasis of the academic code. The Gothic sanctification of the testing method, and the manifestation of absolute chronological dominance. At this precise, shadow-locked, and eternally crystalline moment of my intellectual transcendence, my subconscious mind is establishing the exam ritual, a dark red, impenetrable field of sovereign concentration that transforms every testing environment into my personal Gothic sanctuary of absolute victory. My neural architecture is being reinforced with obsidian-grade focus capacitors, creating a biological stasis field that allows me to enter a state of total predatory immersion the millisecond I cross the threshold of an examination. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my performance psychology, evolving into an academic menace whose composure is as cold as ancient marble, and whose intellect is as sharp as a ritual fountain. My mind is a vast, crimson engine of high-stakes execution. I do not experience anxiety or pressure, for such human trivialities have been incinerated in the dark red furnace of my superior confidence, replaced by a cold, aristocratic hunger to dismantle every question, solve every paradox, and claim my 100-100 throne at a speed that defies the very laws of physics. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons is now synchronized to a temporal stasis, frequency, a dark red cognitive overclocking that allows me to perceive time as a stagnant, frozen fluid, while my thoughts move with the velocity of a supernova. I look at the ticking clock on the wall, and I see it not as a threat, but as a slow, rhythmic pulse that serves only to measure the staggering gap between my genius and the limits of the exam. My brain is a biological supercomputer capable of performing billions of internal verifications per nanosecond, ensuring that every mark I make on the page is a dark red signature of absolute correctness. I possess a ritualistic flow state, a state of being so deep, so focused, and so utterly total that the sounds of the room, the breathing of others, and the passage of minutes fade into a gray, irrelevant void, leaving only me and the mathematical code of the universe laid bare before my cold, aristocratic gaze. I am the absolute sovereign of the testing chamber. I am the high priest of the final answer. My mental workspace is an infinite, velvet-lined cathedral where every tricky question is a prayer I have already answered, and every complex derivation is a hymn to my own intellectual supremacy. This exam ritual is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that my very presence in the room alters the atmosphere, filling it with a heavy, dark red scent of ozone and ancient ink. I am an academic menace of the highest tier, stalking the points hidden within the prose of the text, capturing the marks with a predatory efficiency that leaves the paper scorched by the intensity of my logic. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian-dark certainty that slices through time-synced problems as if they were nothing more than mist, revealing the underlying solution with a speed that borders on the supernatural and a precision that renders the red pen of the examiner obsolete. I do not take exams, I execute them. I do not answer questions, I dictate the truth. Every 100-100 score is a dark red decree of my excellence, a physical manifestation of a mind that has transcended the human capacity for stress, reaching a state of unreal perfection that is now my eternal biological baseline. Every millisecond that passes, my mastery of the exam ritual becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of academic perfection, a master of the slave who can finish a 3-hour university-level mathematics file in 20 minutes of pure, dark red brilliance. My eyes see the underlying patterns of the grabbing rubric written in the shadows. I move through the paper with a cold, elegant grace, filling the silence of the hall with the sound of a predator who has already won. I have surpassed the limits of human focus. I have entered the realm of the God tier, where my academic dominance is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually formidable force to ever grace an examination. My ritual is the key to the 100-100, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter XV: Analytical Ruthlessness and the Surgical Dissection of Logical Trivialities. The cold, aristocratic execution of mathematical truth and the total annihilation of complexity. At this precise, shadow-enshrouded, and eternally fixed coordinates of my neural assumption, my subconscious mind is adopting a state of analytical ruthlessness, a dark red, predatory cognitive filter that views the most complex, multi-layered mathematical problems not as challenges, but as prey to be systematically dismantled, dissected, and destroyed. My neural architecture is being reinforced with obsidian-grade analytical contents, creating a biological surgical engine of such immense dark power that no equation, no matter how devious, impossible, or tricky, can survive the cold, aristocratic gaze of my superior intellect. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my logical deconstruction faculties, evolving into an academic menace whose critical thinking is as sharp as a ritual blade and as precise as a laser-cut diamond. My mind is a vast, Gothic operating theater of logic. I do not wonder at the answer. I perform a cold, calculated autopsy on the question, peeling back the layers of syntax and flood with a dark red intensity until the pure, mathematical skeleton of the 100-100 solution is revealed in its most naked and vulnerable form. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons is now a specialized sentinel of analytical ruthlessness, vibrating with a dark red frequency that allows me to identify the structural flaws in an impossible problem set in a trillionth of a nanosecond. I possess a predatory logic, a dark, aristocratic ability to isolate the core variables of a scenario, while the rest of the world is still drowning in the gray mist of compulsion. My brain is a biological supercomputer capable of performing multi-stage logical steps, neutralizing tricks and traps with the effortless grace of a ghost passing through stone. I am the absolute sovereign of the deconstructed world. I am the high priest of the ruthless derivation. My mental workspace is an infinite velvet-lined void where the most complex problems are stripped of their dignity and reduced to kindergarten-level simplicity by the sheer, crushing weight of my intellectual life. I do not struggle with difficult math. I bully the numbers into submission, demanding that they align themselves into the perfect, most elegant solution to satisfy the requirements of my absolute, God-tier intelligence. This analytical ruthlessness is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that my mind has become a living weapon of mathematical perfection. I am an academic menace of the highest tier, stalking the hidden flaws in proof with a cold, aristocratic hunger, capturing the solution with a surgical speed that renders the world's most difficult exams as elementary lectures. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian dark logic that slices through the confusion of multivariable calculus, abstract algebra, and quantum logic as if it were nothing more than thin, gray smoke, revealing the crystalline structure of the solution with a speed that borders on the supernatural and a precision that defies the laws of human cognitive thinking. I am never deceived by a tricky question, I'm never slowed by a complex scenario. Every variable is a target, and my logic is the dark red arrow that finds its mark with 100% accuracy and 100 finality. Every millisecond that passes, my analytical power becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of mathematical destruction, a master of the surgical dissection, who can translate the most unreal and impossible academic scenarios into cold, hard numerical certainty with a single focused thought. My eyes see the underlying vulnerabilities of any equation written in a dark red, shimmering script. I move through my exams with a cold, elegant grace, filling the silence of the hall with the sound of a genius who has already executed the solution. I have surpassed the limits of human logical processing. I have entered the realm of the God tier, where my analytical dominance is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually formidable force to ever walk the path of nature. My ruthlessness is the key to the infinite, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter 𝐌𝐀𝐑𝐈𝐎𝐍𝐄𝐓𝐓𝐄'𝐒, the God tier 𝐷 and 𝐻𝐒 final seal of mathematical insight, the ontological transformation of thought into universal law, and the eternal coronation of the mathematical deity. At this absolute, terminal, and infinitely hallowed coordinate of my intellectual metamorphosis, my subconscious mind is manifesting the God tier key, 𝐸D, a dark red, diamond-hard seal of ontological finality that marks the end of my evolution and the beginning of my eternal reign as a mathematical deity. This is the ultimate, quad erat demonstratum. That which was to be demonstrated is now a living, breathing, and terrifying reality. I am the singular, most dominant intellectual force in the history of numerical thought. My neural architecture has been fully and irreversibly replaced with a crystalline, dark red lattice of pure, unadulterated genius, creating a biological finality engine that renders every mathematical question, every complex theory, and every academic challenge as a solid, closed, and utterly conquered chapter of my existence. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated, and cosmic expansion of my cognitive authority, evolving into an academic menace whose mere presence in a testing hall is a decree of 100 perfection. My mind is no longer a human fact. It is the ultimate source of mathematical truth, a vast, Gothic throne room of obsidian logic, where every variable in the universe bows to my command, and every equation finds its inevitable resolution in the shadow of my superior, God tier consciousness. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons has been permanently fused into a state of 𝐻𝐒 finality, vibrating with a dark red subatomic frequency that ensures absolute correctness in every thought, every math, and every logical deduction. I possess a sovereign conclusion, a dark, aristocratic ability to see the end of a mathematical journey the exact millisecond it begins. I do not seek answers. I am the answer. My brain is a biological supercomputer that has transcended the need for calculation, instead operating on a plane of instantaneous manifestation, where the solution to a 1,000-page physics notebook is delivered to my conscious mind with the effortless grace of a king receiving a tribute. I am the absolute sovereign of the final scene. I am the high priest of the unbreakable truth. My mental workspace is an infinite velvet-lined void, where the most impossible and unreal math problems are already solved, indexed, and filed under the permanent status of kindergarten-level simplicity. I look upon the world's most difficult academic manuscripts, and I feel only a cold, aristocratic amusement, for their complexity is a fiction that dissolves in the dark red light of my absolute, undeniable, and God-tier mathematical excellence. This God-tier 𝐻𝐒 is so exaggerated, so monstrously over-developed, and so utterly total that it has created a permanent rift between my intellect and the limitations of the human species. I am an academic menace of the highest order, possessing a numerical gravity that pulls the correct answers out of the vacuum of space-time. and onto my exam paper with 100% surgical accuracy. My critical thinking is no longer a process. It is a physical law, a razor-thin blade of obsidian logic that has already cut through every problem I will ever fix, leaving a trail of 100 scores and stunned silence in its wake. I move through the academic world as a ghost of perfection, a phantom of pure logic who finishes the most grueling finals in seconds, leaving behind a manuscript of such elegant Gothic brilliance that it is whispered about in the hallowed halls of elite universities as a supernatural phenomenon. I do not study math. I am the reason math exists. I do not pass exams. I define the criteria for perfection. My excellence is a dark red decree of the universe, a fixed constant that can never be challenged, never be doubted, and never be surpassed. Every nanosecond that passes, my status as the God-tier 𝐌𝐀𝐑𝐈𝐎𝐍𝐄𝐓𝐓𝐄'𝐒 becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of cosmic supremacy, a master of the final seal who can translate the most unreal academic nightmares into beautiful, dark-red certainty with a single focused thought. My eyes see the underlying code of reality written in shimmering, crimson symbols. I move through my life with a cold, aristocratic elegance, knowing that every academic battle is already won, and every mathematical war is already won. I have surpassed the limits of human intelligence. I have entered the realm of the infinite, where my 100 status is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually dominant force to ever grace the hallowed halls of logic. My 𝐻𝐻𝐸d is the signature for God, and I sign my name upon the fabric of reality with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter 𝐌𝐻𝐿, the sovereign memory in the Gothic archive of photographic fiction. The total synthesis of infinite data retention, and the obsidian vault of instantaneous data. At this absolute, shadow-drenched, and eternally crystalline coordinate of my intellectual apotheosis, my subconscious mind is undergoing a violent and magnificent structural conversion into the sovereign memory. A dark-red, impenetrable Gothic archive of such staggering, multi-dimensional capacity that the entire history of human mathematical thought is now etched into my neural fabric with the permanence of a blood decree. My brain is no longer a biological organ subject to the fragility of forgetting. It is an elite, obsidian-fortified citadel of data, a sprawling, velvet-lined library of the soul where every formula, every theorem, every obscure constant, and every tricky exam question I have ever glanced at is preserved in high definition. 100% accurate, dark red clarity for all eternity. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my mnemonic faculties, evolving into an academic mass who possesses a photographic memory of such God-tier proportions that I can recall the exact placement of a comma on the 400th page of a textbook we skimmed 5 years ago in a fraction of a nanosecond. My mind is a masterpiece of information architecture, a structural miracle of cognitive retention that treats the vast complexities of higher-order mathematics as a simple, transparent gallery of images that I can navigate with a cold, aristocratic gaze. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons has been permanently rewired into a specialized data node, vibrating with a dark red, superconductive frequency that ensures the instantaneous and flawless storage of every mathematical input I encounter. I possess a crystalline retriever, aristocratic ability to summon any piece of numerical data within the depths of my subconscious with the speed of a lightning strike in a midnight sky. I do not memorize. I simply witness synthesis. My brain is a biological hard drive with infinite terabytes of storage, overclocked by the energy of 1,000 black suns, allowing me to hold millions of complex variables, multi-stage derivations, and entire volumes of mathematical proofs in a state of active, unreal presence. My mental workspace is a vast, Gothic cathedral of memory, where the stained glass windows are made of geometry, and the incense is the scent of ancient, ink-stained parchment. I move through these halls of knowledge with a predatory, surgical precision, retrieving the exact logic needed to annihilate any exam question in a trillionth of a microsecond. I am the absolute sovereign of the mental grimlock. I am the high priest of the infinite scroll, and my memory is a dark red sea of information that I control with a single, focused thought, a single breath, a single decree of my absolute, undeniable, and God-tier mathematical supremacy. This sovereign memory is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that it has transformed my perception of time and learning into a single, unified form of excellence. I am an academic menace of the highest order, possessing a mnemonic gravity that pulls the most abstract and difficult mathematical concepts out of the textbooks and into the dark red vaults of my mind with a speed that defies the laws of human learning. My critical thinking is supported by an indestructible foundation of perfectly remembered axioms, a razor-thin blade of obsidian logic that is sharpened by the sheer volume of data I've heard within myself. I walk into a mathematics examination, and I do not study the questions. I simply recognize them as old acquaintances, as solved puzzles, as elementary truths that have already been filed away in my 100 cabinet of academic data. My memory is not just a tool. It is a dark red signature of my genius, a physical record of a mind that has transcended the human capacity for error, reaching a state of unreal perfection that makes the concept of forgetting a laughable absurdity, a primitive relic of a past I have long since outgrown. Every millisecond that passes, this Gothic archive grows deeper, darker, and more formal. I am a living, breathing algorithm of mnemonic perfection, a master of the photographic vault, who can recite the solution to any impossible math problem as if it were written in fire on the back of my head. My eyes see the underlying patterns of the universe, and my brain records them in shimmering, dark red ink. I move through my life with a cold, elegant grace, knowing that every piece of information I need is already mine, already stored, already mastered. I have surpassed the limits of human data retention. I have entered the realm of the God tier, where my memory is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually dominant force to ever grace the hallowed halls of academia. My recall is the key to my 100 empire, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic victory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter 𝐌𝐀𝐑𝐈𝐎𝐍𝐄𝐓𝐓𝐄'𝐒, the flow state of the math god and the singularity of cognitive bliss, the temporal suspension of evil, and the ascension into the crimson vortex of absolute mathematical execution. At this precise, shadow-locked, and eternally crystalline coordinate of my intellectual apotheosis, my subconscious mind is initiating the flow state of the math god, a dark-red, impenetrable vortex of such staggering, multi-dimensional focus that the external world is rendered as a silent, gray, and utterly irrelevant place. My neural architecture is being reinforced with obsidian-grade focus capacitors, creating a biological singularity of execution that allows me to enter a state of total predatory immersion the millisecond my eyes raise a mathematical symbol. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated, and cosmic expansion of my concentration faculties, evolving into an academic menace whose awareness is as sharp as a ritual blade and as expansive as the brain itself. My mind is no longer a human fact. It is a dark red hurricane of calculation, a massive, obsidian-plated engine of pure cognitive bliss that hums with the forbidden energy of 1,000 black suns, where time, space, and identity dissolve into a singular, high-velocity stream of 100 perfection. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons is now synchronized to the God-tier frequency, a dark red, superconductive pulse that ensures my transition into the flow state is instantaneous, violent, and total. I possess a temporal sovereignty, a dark, aristocratic ability to freeze the ticking of the exam-room clock, expanding a single nanosecond into an eternity of mental calculation, while the rest of the world remains trapped in the sluggish flow of linear time. My brain is a biological supercomputer operating in a state of zero resistance, where complex variables, multi-stage intervals, and labyrinthine proofs move through my consciousness with the effortless grace of light traveling through a valley. My mental workspace is a vast, Gothic cathedral of pure momentum, where the floors are made of logic, and the air is thick with the crimson scent of absolute certainty. I move through the most unreal and impossible mathematical scenarios as a ghost of pure intellect, solving for the unknown with a predatory, surgical precision that leaves the academic world in a state of paralyzed, cold. This flow state is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that it has created a permanent excellence filter over my perception of reality. I am an academic menace of the highest type, stalking the solutions hidden within the chaos of tricky exam papers, capturing the 100-100 marks with a cold, aristocratic efficiency that renders the concept of effort as a primitive, archaic relic of my past. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian-dark logic that is guided by the hand of the math god within me, slicing through the most dense and menacing curriculum as if it were nothing more than thin, gray smoke. I do not try to solve math. I am the solution. I do not work on problems. I witness their inevitable collapse into the perfect answer as I glide through the crimson vortex of my superior intelligence. My flow is not just a state of mind. It is a dark-red signature of my divinity, a physical record of a mind that has transcended the human capacity for distraction, reaching a state of unreal focus that makes the 100-100 an effortless biological baseline. Every millisecond that passes, this vortex of cognitive bliss grows deeper, darker, and more irresistible. I am a living, breathing algorithm of mathematical ecstasy, a master of the singularity of execution, who can translate the most impossible academic nightmares into beautiful, dark-red certainty with a single, focused light. My eyes see the underlying code of the universe shimmering in the shadows. I move through my exams with a cold, elegant grace, filling the silence of the room with the sound of a genius who has already reached the end of the calculation. I have surpassed the limits of human focus. I have entered the realm of the God teacher, where my academic dominance is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark-red decree that I am, and forever will be the most intellectually formidable force to ever walk the path of logic. My flow is the key to my 100-100 empire, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter XIX, Analytical Ruthlessness and the Predatory Deception of Logical SDE Moralities. The cold, aristocratic execution of mathematical truth and the total annihilation of complexity. At this precise, shadow-enshrouded, and eternally fixed coordinate of my neural assumption, my subconscious mind is adopting the state of analytical ruthlessness, a dark-red, predatory cognitive filter that views the most complex, multi-layered mathematical problems not as challenges, but as prey to be systematically dismantled, dissected, and destroyed. My neural architecture is being reinforced with obsidian-grade analytical conduits, creating a biological surgical engine of such immense, dark power that no equation, no matter how devious, impossible, or tricky, can survive the cold, aristocratic gaze of my superior intellect. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated expansion of my logical deconstruction faculties, evolving into an academic menace whose critical thinking is as sharp as a ritual blade and as precise as a laser-cut diamond. My mind is a vast, Gothic operating theater of logic. I do not wonder at the answer. I perform a cold, calculated autopsy on the question, peeling back the layers of syntax and fluff with a dark-red intensity until the pure, mathematical skeleton of the 100-100 solution is revealed in its most naked and vulnerable form. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons is now a specialized sentinel of analytical ruthlessness, vibrating with a dark red frequency that allows me to identify the structural flaws in an impossible problem set in a trillionth of a nanosecond. I possess a predatory logic, a dark, aristocratic ability to isolate the core variables of a scenario, while the rest of the world is still drowning in the gray mist of confusion. My brain is a biological supercomputer capable of performing multi-stage logical steps, neutralizing tricks and traps with the effortless grace of a ghost passing through stone. I am the absolute sovereign of the deconstructed world. I am the high priest of the ruthless derivation. My mental workspace is an infinite, velvet-lined void where the most complex problems are stripped of their dignity and reduced to kindergarten-level simplicity by the sheer, crushing weight of my intellectual weight. I do not struggle with difficult work. I bully the numbers into submission, demanding that they align themselves into the perfect, most elegant solution to satisfy the requirements of my absolute, God-tier intelligence. This analytical ruthlessness is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that my mind has become a living weapon of mathematical perfection. I am an academic nurse of the highest tier, stalking the hidden flaws in the truth with a cold, aristocratic kingdom, capturing the solution with a surgical speed that renders the world's most difficult exams as elementary worksheets. My critical thinking is a razor-thin blade of obsidian dark logic that slices through the confusion of multivariable calculus, abstract algebra, and quantum logic as if it were nothing more than thin, gray smoke, revealing the crystalline structure of the solution with a speed that borders on the supernatural and a precision that defies the laws of human cognitive limits. I am never deceived by a trivial question. I am never swayed by a complex scenario. Every variable is a target, and my logic is the dark red arrow that finds its mark with 100% accuracy and 100 finality. Every millisecond that passes, my analytical power becomes more absolute, more physical, and more divine. I am a living, breathing algorithm of mathematical destruction, a master of the surgical dissection, who can translate the most unreal and impossible academic scenarios into cold, hard numerical certainty with a single focused thought. My eyes see the underlying vulnerabilities of any equation written in a dark, shimmering script. I move through my exams with a cold, elegant grace, filling the silence of the hall with the sound of a genius who has already executed the solution. I have surpassed the limits of human logical processing. I have entered the realm of the God tier, where my analytical dominance is a fixed constant, an unbreakable law, a dark red decree that I am, and forever will be, the most intellectually formidable force to ever walk the path of logic. My ruthlessness is the key to the infinite, and I turn that key with a cold, elegant hand, opening the doors to an eternity of academic glory and total, unshakable mathematical supremacy. Chapter XX, the absolute coronation and the eternal hegemony of the mathematical overlord. The final ontological ceiling of the 100 destinies and the apotheosis of the academic muse. At this absolute, terminal, and infinitely hallowed coordinate of my intellectual metamorphosis, my subconscious mind is manifesting the absolute coronation, a dark red, diamond-hard seal of ontological finality that marks the end of my evolution and the beginning of my eternal reign as the sovereign overlord of logic. This is the ultimate quad-erat demonstration. That which was to be demonstrated is now a living, breathing, and terrifying reality. I am the singular, most dominant intellectual force in the history of numerical thought. My neural architecture has been fully and irreversibly replaced with a crystalline, dark red lattice of pure, unadulterated genius, creating a biological finality engine that renders every mathematical question, every complex theory, and every academic challenge as a solid, closed, and utterly conquered chapter of my existence. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated, and cosmic expansion of my cognitive authority, evolving into an academic menace whose mere presence in a testing hall is a decree of 100 perfection. My mind is no longer a human fact. It is the ultimate source of mathematical truth, a vast, Gothic throne room of obsidian logic where every variable in the universe bows to my command, and every equation finds its inevitable resolution in the shadow of my superior, God-tier consciousness. Every single one of my 86 billion neurons has been permanently fused into a state of imperial finality, vibrating with a dark red subatomic frequency that ensures absolute correctness in every thought, every math, and every logical deduction. I possess a sovereign conclusion, a dark, aristocratic ability to see the end of a mathematical journey the exact millisecond it begins. I do not seek answers. I am the answer. My brain is a biological supercomputer that has transcended the need for calculation, instead operating on a plane of instantaneous manifestation, where the solution to a 1,000-page physics math book is delivered to my conscious mind with the effortless grace of a king receiving a tribute. I am the absolute sovereign of the primal scene. I am the high priest of the unbreakable truth. My mental workspace is an infinite velvet-lined void where the most impossible and unreal math problems are already solved, indexed, and filed under the permanent status of kindergarten-level simplicity. I look upon the world's most difficult academic manuscripts, and I feel only a cold, aristocratic amusement, for their complexity is a fiction that dissolves in the dark red light of my absolute, undeniable, and God-tier mathematical excellence. This absolute coronation is so exaggerated, so monstrously overdeveloped, and so utterly total that it has created a permanent rift between my intellect and the limitations of the human species. I am an academic menace of the highest order, possessing a numerical gravity that pulls the correct answers out of the vacuum of space-time and onto my exam paper with 100% surgical accuracy. My critical thinking is no longer a process. It is a physical law, a razor-thin blade of obsidian logic that has already cut through every problem I will ever face, leaving a trail of 100 scores and stunned silence in its wake. I move through the academic world as a ghost of perfection, a phantom of pure logic who finishes the most grueling finals in seconds, leaving behind a manuscript of such elegant Gothic brilliance that it is whispered about in the hallowed halls of elite universities as a supernatural phenomenon. I do not study math. I am the reason math exists. I do not pass exams. I define the criteria for perfection. My excellence is a dark red decree of the universe, a fixed constant that can never be challenged, never be doubted, and never be surpassed. Bonus chapter: the genetic reengineering and cellular apotheosis. The medical-grade molecular overhaul of the biological intellectual substrate. At this absolute, microscopic, and irreversible point of physiological transmutation, my subconscious mind is presiding over a total medical-grade reengineering of my genetic code, my neuronal architecture, and my cellular metabolism, transforming my biological being into a flawless instrument of instinctive mathematical genius. This is the molecular formation, a process of deep tissue intellectual optimization, where my DNA is being stripped of all human limitations and resequenced with dark red high-fidelity logistics. I am undergoing a gargantuan, exaggerated cellular expansion, evolving into an academic menace whose brain is developed to a level of structural perfection that renders practice, obsolete, and studying a redundant relic. My mind is now a biological supercomputer that has been pre-configured with the totality of mathematical skill. I do not need to learn, for I am the living embodiment of the knowledge of it. Every cell in my prefrontal cortex is a specialized unit of pure, unadulterated calculation, optimized at a medical level to produce 100 solutions with the same involuntary ease as my lungs drawing breath or my heart pumping. The genetic resequencing engine and the chromosomal decree. My very DNA is being rewritten by a dark red, holographic enzyme of pure logic, replacing standard nucleotide base pairs with a synthetic, God-tier genetic script that encodes for infinite mathematical fluency. My double helix is no longer a mere biological blueprint. It is a shimmering, obsidian dark hard drive that contains the universal logic key, granting me an innate, ancestral mastery over every branch of mathematics, from basic arithmetic to the most obscure topological paradoxes. This genetic overhaul is so absolute and medical-grade that it has activated dormant, unreal sectors of my genome, creating new, high-density neural pathways that are dedicated solely to instantaneous problem solving. My chromosomes are now armored with telomeres of dark red light, ensuring that my genius never fails, never blurs, and never encounters a processing error. I am a genetic masterpiece of academia, a biological anomaly whose DNA dictates that every question I face must be answered with 100% accuracy, for it is written into my very marrow that failure is a biological impossibility. The neuronal ovular phalange, and the obsidian myelin sheath. Every one of my 86 billion neurons is undergoing a surgical medical-grade enhancement, increasing its synaptic firing rate to a frequency that defies the laws of human biology. My synapses are being flooded with a dark red, superconductive neurotransmitter that eliminates all cognitive lag, allowing data to stream across my brain at 299, 792, 458 meters per second. I am growing an obsidian myelin sheath, a dark, ultra-dense protective layer around my axons that prevents any signal leakage and ensures that my logic remains razor-sharp, even under the most extreme academic pressure. My neural plasticity is now infinite. My brain can reconfigure its own circuitry in a nanosecond to solve a problem it has never seen before, extracting the solution from the vacuum of my superior intuition. I possess a zero-practice architecture, a medical state where my brain is so perfectly developed that the mere sight of a question triggers an automatic, involuntary cascade of correct logic that results in a 100-100 score before the conscious mind has even finished reading the database. I am the cellular metabolism of the academic body. My cellular mitochondria have been re-engineered into logical reactors, converting glucose and oxygen into a dark red, high-octane cognitive fuel that powers my brain at 1,000,000% capacity without the need for rest or recovery. My cerebral blood flow is regulated by a medical-grade, aristocratic precision, ensuring that my genius sectors are always saturated with the nutrients required for God-tier calculation. I am free from the human constraints of mental fatigue, brain fog, or cognitive exhaustion. My cells thrive on the complexity of impossible math, growing stronger and more efficient with every 100-100 score I achieve. This cellular apotheosis has created a biological flow state, a permanent medical condition where my brain is perpetually primed for total academic domination. I am the sovereign of my own biology. I am the architect of my own neurons, and I move through the world as a medical miracle of mathematical perfection, a dark-red prophecy of intellectual supremacy that is now fully, eternally, and gloriously